where I think there's not enough talk is like, hey, great, we're going to get drone deliveries through like big companies through Part 108, but at the expense of the everyday American that doesn't have the same access to use that technology. Because as it stands right now, if I wanted to go set like my drone out in like the front yard and send it over to my neighbor's house, you know, that's illegal right now. If like I go back in the house and I send my drone over to their yard and I want them to load it up with a couple eggs, a cup of sugar, you know, flour, you know, something like that, I was just made a criminal. And like, why is that the case, right? Because, well, what about safety? What if it were to fall on someone's head, right? Charge me with manslaughter, right? We already have laws that cover accidental assault or damage or killing of people, right? And that's what I don't think is being talked about enough. As like much as, yeah, these drones are being used in warfare, thinking about the day-to-day value that they can provide, you know, just from a convenience perspective, but then that same platform also being, you know, part of your self-defense for your home, right? For your family, for your home.
Well, I think part of it is we need people like within the FAA and people who are making the rules, laws, all that need to come from like experienced people within the industry, because they don't have a full grasp of it. You know, if someone like me or you would be able to have a lot more insight on if we were trying to put laws or rules into place, but somebody else that's just kind of reading and learning and they're not in the day-to-day of it, you know, are they going to do what's best? They know what they think it is, and from their, you know, people's different replies, and you know how things, a person says something, but you know somebody else takes it a different way.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing some work reaching out to our local Congress people, just because, you know, the Part 108, you know, what a open forum sort of like feedback session is like going on right now. But it's like, and the whole NDAA regulations as well, like I get, you know, we want to have American made components, but at the same time, you know, I don't think it's the big problem that should be addressed, right? Again, from the ownership perspective, I think there's many points where, like, just buying a drone, legally speaking, you're required to register it with the FAA, right? And if you think about our Second Amendment, right, think about registries at the federal level, right? That's unconstitutional, right?
Yep.
And if you look at how the Supreme Court has actually ruled on the Second Amendment, it's not firearms, it's weapons that would be not distributed, but like, yeah, whatever, given out, like issued as part of a well-organized militia, and what are being issued as part of a well-organized militia, as we're seeing in Ukraine, as we're seeing in Russia, low-cost, $1,000 sort of DIY, you know, what I think will become personal drones, right? And I know that's like a big hill to, like, you know, like stand on, like, what? Yeah, right. The FAA is going to walk back that, you know, registering your drone. I think that needs to be walked back to some degree. You know, remote ID. I'm not totally against the idea of like having some sort of identification or licensing, like in the same way, you know, we have a car that we drive recreationally. There's still a license attached to it, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, there's this delineation between operating a drone commercially and operating a car recreationally or commercially recreationally, where I got into it with this drone operator online local to us, where I was talking about like the Part 108 guidelines, like being great for opening up drone deliveries for large organizations. But as an American citizen, there is no legal pathway without me starting a company and going through the waiver process to use my drone for my own personal deliveries. And why is that just inherently illegal, right?
I was kind of, you know, upsetting with what they released with the Part 108. I thought it'll be a lot more involved. You know, they released something that, you know, yes, it's a baby step there, but how they talked about what was going to come out and everything was completely kind of different than, you know, what came out. I felt like it was a real, you know, slap in the face.
Yeah, and it's also not even made transparent, really. I mean, it's like, here's a 700-page document or whatever, and then, of course, people go in and distill it, but it's like, why do we need to have this much for like, to me, I feel like we could come up with a couple of pages, and it's like, with all the other laws that we already have on the books, outside of drone operation, I think it would cover any way that you would misuse a drone that, you don't need 100 pages to cover, right? And again, that's a gross oversimplification of it, but it's almost been like grossly overcomplicated on purpose, right? Just to obscure, what's really going on behind a black box. And it's like, oh, well, you had your time to comment on it. It's like, really? I had time to read through all 700 pages to know what's actually being proposed.
Yep.
And then, come back to you with something that you're actually going to listen to.
Yeah, and also, who's going to enforce it? I know, like...
it's not even enforced at the levels it's at right now. Right?
Yeah, and you expect, for local law enforcement to learn all this information. I mean, the amount of times, I've had questions from local law enforcement, and they've, purchased drones and stuff through us. They're like, hey, we had this one call out about this guy flying a drone here. Like, what's legal about it? What's not? Like, what could they do? And, I share it to the one person, but are they going to share it back with,